What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball, New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raphael Rattler, joined with my fellow middle brother, Gary Giovanni Rattler. What's popping with you, bro?
What up, bro? Staying up late for this Pels preseason game, man. I mean, basketball is back, so who needs sleep when you got preseason basketball? But yeah, man, it's a late night, but the Pels showed a lot of fight tonight. Especially Jose Alvarado, man. Let me tell you something. A fight in the second game of the preseason is absolutely insane. What up, Big Major? It's absolutely insane. But hey, this is why we love sports. This is why we love basketball. This is why the city of New Orleans loves Jose Alvarado. Because if you could, anybody else, any other preseason game, they chilling, trying to get up in a trying to get their gears up and running. And it's just straight up madness and fighting from Jose. So gotta love it, man. But basketball is back. I'm enjoying it. Shout out to my Aces for winning the championship. Yep. They got it done. Shout out to Asia for doing the thing. But yeah, man, it was awesome to have the Pelicans back against NBA competition, ready to get into it. How'd everything on your side?
Everything is blessed. Like you said, it was interesting to watch the Pelicans play in yet another game that was not in the Smoothie King Center out in Birmingham. But again, like, at least for parts of the game, it felt like the intensity was more than just your typical preseason game.
Yeah, you called it.
Yeah. It felt like, teams are kind of gearing up and getting ready to start the regular season a little bit faster than perhaps in the past. We're going to jump into the Pelicans 128-130 loss to the Rockets in Birmingham. But before we do that, make sure you guys are locked in and follow us on Twitter, on X, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO Basketball. No E. Make sure you're liking the episode below and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. So before we jump into the Pelican game, man, RIP D'Angelo, man, that was tough a tough news,
man.
Today.
Tough news.
Big part of my growing up for sure, and probably some other people's growing up too. So that was a tough one at just the age of 51. That was sad from that. But on top of that, I want to start it off by this. One of my questions going into this game was just because Jeremiah Fears was drafted high in this game. Shout out to him. It's his birthday today. Got his first shot to play in front of more Pelicans fans. But the usage and what you've seen from him so far, both in the Summer League and Australia and everywhere, but in the Smoothie King Center, has been up and down. And so, for a coach like Willie Green, who's been risk averse when it comes to rookies, let's call it that. I was just really interested to see, okay, when was he coming off the bench? How long was he coming off the bench? Now, Jordan Poole fouled out of this one prematurely, so it kind of forced his hand. But man, he delivered in a lot of ways. So, like, going into the game, I was curious about that. But you tweeted out, you and I talked about it off the pod. There were some other things I was kind of curious going into the game, what you get out of it. One of those things being the Rockets and their physicality. We've talked about before the Pelicans in the past iterations of the Pelicans, when the intensity and the physicality has ramped up. Outside of Zion, there wasn't a whole lot of players who did a really good job of responding back or punching back from that standpoint. So to have your first test of like NBA action versus the Rockets, I thought that was a good place for them to start to figure out, hey, we've done all this stuff in the training camp and workouts and all this stuff, but now you're playing versus someone who is not trying to make sure you stay healthy and things like that. What were your thoughts on the overall physicality from the Rockets and how the Pelicans did with it?
Yeah, man. Listen, you knew that this was going to be a physical game. I mean, look at the Rockets makeup. First of all, getting Kevin Durant there was like a hand and glove fit. That is a team. That is a beast of a team. But you knew the physical makeup of the team on top of the fact that they're coached by Ime Udoka. Like, this was going to be a physical game. And I think, listen, the Pels, first of all, Jose brought the fight, obviously. But outside of that, you could see like guys trying themselves to bring the physicality, right? You saw Trey Murphy getting into the lane early. You saw Herb Jones getting into the lane, getting physical with people early. You saw Yves Missi doing work, being physical early. Carlo Makovich out there being physical. So you saw people trying to bring that physicality to the team, to the Rockets. And then you watch the Rockets kind of ratchet up their intensity, and that's that time that you mentioned that we talked about. That's usually that time when the Pelicans previous iterations wither and they falter underneath that physicality. I think it was very telling that after the altercation and the physicality ramped up, that immediately I tweeted out. I say, listen, this is when they usually falter. This is when they usually wither. I'd like to see Zion and Trey Murphy be inserted back into the game. Because those are your like your stalwarts, like those are your North Stars. Those are the guys who are going to have to be able to rally their team around. And you saw Willie go straight to Zion and Trey both checking in at the same time. And Zion immediately with a superstar burst, I call superstar-ish type burst on both sides of the floor, being physical, getting in the passing lane, being that defensive kind of playmaker, but using that physicality and Trey Murphy coming in and getting to the rim and bumping people off. And they were able to weather that storm, and they went into the half with a 3-point. I think it was like a 3-point
down one
or something.
Because KD had to hit impossible. Shout out to NBA 2K26 phase.
Not the 2K, but yeah, I think that is the kind of fight back that you want to see from the team. Listen, this team's makeup is a lot different from CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, like those type of guys, Josh Hart, like, Larry Nance, like those guys were like really good, nice guys who, or quiet in Brandon Ingram's case. I think Brandon Ingram got a little hooligan in him, but he's just very quiet. That's not the case with Jose and Jeremiah Fears and Derik Queen and Kevon Looney and Sadiq Bey. Like these guys are physical and want to look for contact, right? And so I think that and Yves Missi as well. And so I think you're starting to see these guys kind of grow into themselves, but they're gonna follow behind again Zion and Trey, and having those guys come back in and revert and kind of push that physicality right back on the Rockets. I think that's a good sign for kind of the Pelicans understanding their history and things that they have gone through, and not standing for some of those things that they stood for before.
Right. I mean, again, I think that's where the league is going. I think the league and the refs are going to allow more physicality. I think you saw it about halfway through last year, and it didn't let up in the playoffs. And honestly, I just think that's what you're going to get this year. And so the Pelicans have to be intentional about how you are going to respond when inevitably that does happen. It wasn't just the physicality that Houston plays with and that brand of basketball that they have developed over the last couple of years, but it's also their size in the front court. And you and I have talked about the Pelicans roster makeup going into this season. There's a ton of versatility. There's a ton of potential offensive options. But what there's not is not a whole lot of size in the front court. And when you start this game down Kevon Looney, down Derik Queen, and you're going up against Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun and Clint Capella, like these
Jabari
guys
Smith, Tyree Eason, Amen Thompson.
You name it. Like you see it in the first couple possessions of the game, you saw them just play, but it wasn't beautiful offense. I know that they're out without Fred VanVleet, and I know this is probably not sustainable for an 82 game season, but you just saw them play bully ball, and that we're just going to post up wherever the smallest guy on the court is. And with the Pelicans having a traditional lineup where Jordan Poole's out there and things like that, they took advantage of that in that switch. So what were the first things that kind of stood out to you in regards to that?
I got to say, Willie Green was a wild boy for putting Jeremiah Fears and Jose Alvarado out there with them walking trees. He's a wild boy for putting them both out there. I think that's one of the things I tweeted going into the second half that stood out to me was that, Jordan Poole with his foul trouble and things going on with him, the Jeremiah Fears, Jose Alvarado, like combined backcourt, I just don't know if that's going to be able to work against a lot of teams, let alone the Monstars and the Houston Rockets. So I think that's the first thing. I think what else you see with this Rockets team, again, they are a very unique team. You're not going to run across this team a lot. Obviously, you play this team, they're in your division, so you're going to play them 4 times. But teams like that, I mean, listen, the Pelicans and the Rockets, at the tip-off of this game, there were 0 traditional point guards on the court. 0, none. Everybody on the Rockets team started with 6'7", 6'8", and above. And so you're going to be in a team like that, especially with Steven Adams playing and you not having Kevon Looney like that, you were just begging for, especially when they came out of the second half and they started Sengun and Steven Adams together. It was like, okay, yeah, this is not something that's going to be able to be sustainable for the Pelicans, especially when, like, again, the Pelicans starting lineup, you have Zion and Yves Missi, but like everybody else, and Trey is growing into his body, but Herb is slender, and Trey is still very slender, and Jordan Poole is slender. So it's gonna have to take a gang rebounding. I think that's something that we saw. Again, Looney will help, and Derik Queen will help, but the starting lineup is going to have to gang rebound. Zion was able to get in there a little bit. But I think when you see Zion initiating offense from the top of the key and making plays and things like that, it's going to be very hard for him to make the play, get the person, whoever's shooting, and then for him to also get down, do his work, get into the rebounding position. So it's going to be a lot of boards by committee for that starting lineup. But I think the Pelicans have the way to battle some of that size. You have to lean a lot into like Zion being the point guard, like and having some of those bigger lineups on the floor to play this double big. But I think Derik Queen is going to be that is the versatility that you're missing, right? That you saw Jabari Smith kind of put the Pelicans in a bunch of different bad situations because of his ability to step out to the 3-point line, but also play that bully ball type of game. That is the kind of game that Derik Queen also plays, right? Like he's able to step out at the 3-point line, but he's also able to be, a bully ball guy. And I think his versatility is what you were missing tonight with that size battling on the boards, and especially with Carlo not playing, later in the game. So it was a good showing, because the Pelicans were able to get into they almost doubled the Rockets in paint points. And I think that was one of the things I tweeted about, that they almost doubled them in paint points. And then they also missed a ton of wide open threes, and they were only down by like 12 or so. And they missed a ton of free throws. And so if some of those shots go down, some of those 3-point shots go down, this game, while the starters were playing, might feel different. You might feel that size a little less. But I do think it showed you where the Pelicans can find themselves in trouble if they run into these double big lineups and they aren't able to adjust on the fly.
Right. I think that is the key component out of this. Again, it's a preseason game. How much you're really going to take away from it? And to your point, I do think there is something to the fact that this is how the Rockets play. This is their advantage over most teams, and that they just have more bigger bodies than you have. And so they beat you up on the offensive boards, and their offense can be clunky. That's why they went and got KD. But you and I talked all summer and said, look at the West. A lot of these teams are starting to have 2 7-footers, right? And so, yes, that is a particular trait or characteristic of the Rockets that fall to their strength. But I also think it's a question and it's a problem that the Pelicans are going to have to answer all year long. You talk about, with Zion being stretched away from the rim on contest and Trey getting the rim. I think it's going to have to be a collective effort. You talk about gang rebound and things like that. But like too often throughout the game, and you saw this last season when people were hurt, when people were healthy, when the ball comes off the rim, they just assume someone else is going to get it versus fighting over each other to get the rebound. And for a team that, even if DeJounte Murray comes back and let's say he gets inserted into the starting lineup, he doesn't play in the front court. So you're always going to be down, especially if you're not playing 2 7-footers, you're always going to be down in terms of size advantage when it comes to height. So then it becomes a mentality type thing where you're attacking the boards. One of the best rebounders in the NBA is Josh Hart. And as you know, he's 6'6" because he has just a lot more want to when it comes to getting the boards. And I think that is going to be the telltale story for this team. Obviously, we talk about defense. We'll get to that later. But I think how they conquer the rebounding battle that they're going to have to face night in and night out, I think is going to be important and is really going to tell a lot about this team. That being said, one of the ways to combat, the lack of size is by constantly pushing the pace. Now, there are times throughout this game where you felt, okay, this is how the Pelicans need to play, and this lends to their advantage. You see them get steals. You turn them into buckets. You see Trey having 2 steals in the first quarter. Zion with 4 steals in the first set. You see those things. You're like, yes. But, Garrick, I'm not going to lie to you. There's an element of it. And, again, I understand this is the first preseason action versus NBA. I don't expect anyone to be fully ironed out. But there were just a couple of times where either Zion was close to the rebound or they were looking to get Zion involved, where I'm like, man, if you could just push the pace even more. Because, again, you open the show, neither one of these teams have traditional point guards. And so what's to their benefit is not playing in the half court when you're playing versus 2 7-footers and a long defense like the Rockets. And I felt like there was too many times where the Pelicans let the Rockets get set up versus attacking and either getting to the rim or getting to the free throw line. You mentioned the free throw discrepancy, which was huge in the first half, but a lot of it was just because the Pelicans, I wouldn't even say settle for threes, because to your point, a lot of the threes were good looks. It just felt as if there were more times in transition where they could have forced the issue, Zion included. What were your thoughts just in terms of the pace and the inconsistency there?
Yeah, and I think a good bit of it also, there's a way to play with pace, right? Like you can't outthink and outmove your body yourself. We saw a lot of that with Jordan Hawkins in the first couple of quarters. We'll get to him, but we saw that he was trying to play ahead of where the game was, and you saw it end up with turnover. You saw a lot of that with Jeremiah Fears trying to hurry up and get the ball in, turnover. Tyree Easton is thinking that you're going to do that, steps in front, there's a steal. There's a way to play with pace. If you think about what the Pacers did in the regular season, in the postseason, they played with pace, but Tyrese Halliburton was a controlled pace. It was, okay, we're getting the ball up. We know exactly where each person is running to, where each lane is filling, and we're making sure the ball is up there before 20 seconds is on the shot clock, and we're in the front court already. Whereas the Pelicans, a lot of it seemed like they were just kind of reacting to the situation that was happening. Okay, we scored, we need to get it out. They're already back there. You can't just throw the pass down there because they're already back there looking. Whereas if you saw some of the time where the Rockets got easy buckets off of them, it was because the Pelicans were like sleeping after a bucket or something. And so then they're throwing the ball down the floor. So there's a way to play with pace versus just trying to get up the floor by any means necessary, getting turnovers, because that when you turn the ball over trying to play like that, the other team is already in fast break mode, and so they can get an easy bucket the other way, or your guys are down here and the other team is going the other way. And so you have to play with pace a certain way. I agree with you. There was a lot of times where it seemed as though the Pelicans could have capitalized a little bit more off of playing with a little bit more pace. I do think there is an intentionality to it. I think that they are looking to push it, and I think they're going to get some good results out of that. They just need to get more cohesive about and more intentional about how they're playing with pace, as opposed to just thinking that getting the ball in as quick as you can or getting the ball down the floor as quick as you can, without really kind of playing with any kind of IQ or looking at what's going on the floor. I think that you're going to have to find a balance that way. But the Pelicans have a lot of players who can play up and down the floor, and that's probably their best, their best asset and the best way for them to play. So I think they'll iron it out. I just think this time you saw a lot of like young, youthful, we don't have a point guard on the floor type of turnovers that the Rockets just capitalized off over and over and over again.
Right. They did a decent job of it. And I agree with you. At the beginning of the game, everyone felt a little tight. Like it felt like everyone was forcing just a little bit. And as the game calmed down, they calmed down. Now there was like some flurries of turnovers, like right underneath the basket where Houston makes you pay every single time. And hopefully those types of things get ironed out. But something that you just said that kind of makes a whole lot of sense. The Pelicans need to figure out what their identity is offensively, because to start the game, it felt like okay, your turn, and then we're going to pass the ball around here, and we're going to wait till we get a shot, versus like, how often have we talked about in the past when you play versus Denver or you play versus Milwaukee, you don't go 3 or 4 or 5 possessions before Giannis or Jokic get a shot or get a look or get a touch or attack the basket in some way. And you felt at the beginning of this game, by both the team's fault and probably Zion's fault himself, there just wasn't a whole lot of aggression from, hey, I'm the best player and everyone else is going to feed off of me. And again, this is new. This is the new era of Zion. There is no Brandon Ingram involved. In the past, you've heard Zion talk about, well, we got to figure out who's going to come out hot looking for theirs, whether it's CJ or whether it's Brandon Ingram or whether it's Trey Murphy. What are your thoughts on who needs to come out looking aggressive moving forward? Because Trey was just kind of, taking the shots that came to him. Zion was just kind of taking the shots that came to him. And you need one of those two, I would argue, to be your main initiator, especially without a true point guard and DeJounte Murray on the roster. What are your thoughts on just starting games faster and not getting down 4-13 before people get to sit down with their popcorn?
Well, I can tell you who was not passive at all, and that was Herb Jones. He was like, y'all don't want to shoot, I will, and I respect it. I think that Herb needs to continue to do that. But I to your point, I tweeted this out during the game. Zion has talked about a lot of stuff that he has on his goal list, right? He wanted to be Defensive Player of the Year. He wanted to do. I think something that Zion should really shoot for is to lead the team in shot attempts by a substantial margin. I think that should be something he does. And again, that's not really Zion's game. I understand that he's more, let's fill the game out. And listen, sometimes you need that from Zion because, again, when you look around, there's not a lot of facilitators on the floor, with him to start the game. And so he's going to need to get into the feeding at some point in time, but not at the start of the game. I think that Zion needs to, he should go into every game saying, how close can I get the 20, 22 shots in this game? And I think that starts and get at the tip off, and it continues throughout the game. That's how you get the 20 game. Yeah, LSU owns that. That Zion, and this Zion that you saw him in this game, this is not something that we've seen. We talked about game. He needs to game 10, game 11. He say out of his mouth, I need game 10, game 20 to get into to shape and to get into shape. This was not that. This was preseason game 3, and he was locked in. We saw him in preseason game 1 locked in. So this is a different type of Zion. But for sure, he needs to be able to get going at the beginning of the game and just play on, because and have it consistently throughout the game, because he is the tide that raises all boats. Everyone else can get off once the attention is on. Okay, Zion is looking for blood, out for blood this game. You take 5-6 shots in the first quarter, everybody's already like, okay, we got to do something about this. This is a 5-alarm fire that is raging. People start to try to shrink the floor. That's how you get Trey Murphy open shots. That's how you get Herb Jones, Jordan Poole open shots. You saw a little bit of it tonight. Trey Murphy got some wide open shots. Jordan Poole got some wide open shots. A lot of players got open shots off of the attention that Zion was bringing. And so I would agree with you that it needs to be either Zion or Trey. But to be honest, it has to be Zion for me, because the attention that Zion gets, Trey is ascending to that. Mm-hmm. Zion is there. And so and his buckets are loud and they are impactful. And so I think if you can get going, and if every single game he needs to how close can you get to 20 to 22 shots? I know it's not something that he does a lot, but it needs to be something that he commits to, because this team will be a lot better if Zion is aggressive early and often throughout the entire game. Because when you're trying to play catch up, obviously the Rockets sat guys down and guys weren't playing. When you're in these NBA games and you're playing these teams that are busting their chops for playoff position, they're not going to be, Jokic isn't going to be relying on, Cam Johnson to get going. Giannis is not going to be worrying about is Gary Trent going. Anthony Edwards not going to be worrying about if Julius Randle is like, these guys are going to be ball in my hand. You have to deal with me every single play. And when you start to try to deal with me, that's when I feed my guys. And so Zion needs to get into that habit early, because it can't be something that he tries to turn on, 10 games in, 20 games in. Start in the preseason, get you 5 to 6 shots a quarter while you're in there. And if they're not giving you the ball, then go grab somebody by the neck and demand the damn ball, because he is the max player. He is the superstar, and everyone else will play better if you are aggressive and the defense can try to focus in on you.
I'm going to do you one better. I think the Pelicans are a different team when Zion is looking to get the defensive board and push the pace. Because when Zion gets the rebound, and Willie Green is talking about this, it forces everyone else to run in front of him, right? And he's already so electric from one end to the end of the floor that when he pushes the pace, all of a sudden everyone else is scrambling and trying to figure out, how do we stop the freight train? And that's what opens up the different things. I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that on Zion's high rebound game, it also tends to be high assist games, because those are the games where he starts with the ball and doesn't have to call for the ball. And so part of that is on him, right? And a lot of this is figuring out. I think the more, and you saw it today, you saw it the last preseason game, Zion's getting more and more comfortable shooting the midi. Today was beautiful. Like, he got to a spot, took a step back and shot it with confidence. The more and more he's on the court, the more and more comfortable, and the more and more he'll need to know what his team needs, right? And so that's the biggest travesty about the past however many years with Zion not being available, is that not only have you not been able to see the Pelicans figure out what they are, but you haven't been able to see the incremental improvements in Zion Williamson. Because what people see in the 360 dunks and things like that, those are phenomenals for highlights and things like that. But if he continues to grow and get better from that, like if that is the floor, that just brings the Pelicans along with it. You brought up Herb Jones tonight and his confidence, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Now, Herb could not hit a shot to start the game at all. He got going a little bit there toward the end of the second and the beginning of the third. But you and I talked about, like, with Herb Jones and Yves Missi in particular, it's not always, it is if you make the shots, obviously it's a make or miss league, but sometimes it's just the confidence in it, right? And at the end of, last season, before Herb got taken out and he got hurt again and things like that, he just wasn't shooting the ball with the same confidence. The beginning of the season, obviously he gets hurt early, but the season before and the season prior to that, Herb was shooting the ball as if I'm a shooter. You and I talked about this. Like, we need to reclassify where Herb's offensive game begins, because he's shooting the ball as if he's way more confident than he's ever been. Well, tonight, again, even though he didn't make a whole lot to start the game, he was shooting the ball, he was attacking the rim, and those are the things you want to see from Herb Jones. Remember, Herb played less games than Zion last year, so getting his footing and getting his comfortability with this new team offensively and just being on the court, period, is important for him in this preseason too. What were the things that you saw from Herb and Yves? Because you saw him put a little go at Sengun, go at Steven Adams with his own offensive repertoire, and those are the things that are mandatory, I think, for the Pelicans starting five to be successful.
Yeah, man. And one thing to also know about Herb is that it's his first preseason game. He didn't play in in Melbourne in Australia, so this was his first game. As Paul is saying, he was in front of the home crowd, so it was a lot going on with Herb as far as, like, the circumstances around being on the court. And I think a lot of that played into it. But what I liked was his aggressiveness. Listen, he's going to be on the court with Zion and Trey and Jordan Poole or DeJounte Murray, whoever it is, and Yves Missi, or Kevon Looney or whoever. So he's going to be either the fourth or the fifth, option on the defensive game plan for the opposite team. And so if you're just going to be out there just kind of floating around waiting for the defense to kind of to start so that you can shine on that side, the Pelicans are not going to be able to do much with you on the floor. And so it's upon Herb to make himself a threat, right? Like that fourth defender, that fifth defender, whoever it is, like, that guy can't just sit around and watch Zion and watch Trey and be able to help on him. he's got to be like, man, Herb is cutting. Herb is getting in the dunker position. We talked about Herb, 2 seasons ago, and I said that he was one of the best, the space filler on the team, meaning like there were little spaces and hooks and nooks and crannies, and he would just like find it, and Zion would find him, and other guys would find him and cuts, and he would be able to finish at the rim. You saw a lot of it this time. He took the first 2 shots of the game, and they were like, I'm taking these shots. Like, they weren't like, okay, it's on me, I guess I'm shooting. He was like, nah, I'm out here. I'm getting the first 2 shots of the game. And of course, obviously he couldn't make a lot of those shots, but I like the aggressiveness, because there's going to be games where those shots do go in, and you want Herb to be the guy, keeping the defense honest on that side, because he brings so much on the other side of the floor that you need that offense to come around and be there, on a nightly basis, so that he can stay on the floor for long extended periods of time, because the Pelicans are better with Herb Jones on the floor, but they need that offense to kind of get that. So I like his aggressiveness. I think he's going to have to continue to do that. I don't know if he's going to take as many shots in the first quarter as he did on a nightly basis. I think, again, he was in front of Alabama's people. The Pelicans love them some Herb Jones. Go ahead and get you some. But I think that you're going to see a lot more of aggressive side from Herb. But Eves, listen, Eves is now kind of the enigma on the team. And what I mean by that is that I think Trey has kind of ascended past that. I think what you're gonna get from Trey on pretty much a night in basis. Kind of quiet tonight, but I think you know what to get from Trey Murphy. Eves is the team feels different when Eves is being aggressive and looking for offense, going for lobs, going for blocks. They feel more athletic. They feel faster. And how many times have we talked about over the past years that the Pelicans could really get about 6, 8, 10 points off just lobbing it at the rim, right? You saw Jose find him. Mm-hmm. You saw Jeremiah Fit. Like, you saw a lot. Like, that's 6 to 8 points that you could get off of something simple as a screen, roll, and jump. And Eves can do all of those very well. And so I like to see him rolling and looking for the ball and going at Şengün, and being that rim protector, but also being a offensive threat, right? You don't have to score 20 points a game. That's the beauty of the Pelicans having so many guys. And we saw Carlo kind of step in and do some things. Like, you see, there's a lot points wise that you could get from a lot of different guys. What you can't get from a lot of different guys is the screening, the rolling, the athleticism, the blocks. Those things are Eve specific. And if there are games where he looks like, okay, this is a guy who knows what he's doing and he's being effective on both sides of the ball, those are the games where you're like, man, there's the Pelicans starting center for years. And then there are some games where he's just, kind of lost in the sauce and not catching the ball and not being aggressive. And those are the games where you're like, what, outside of defense and rebounding, what can you do? And so I think it was a really good showing for Eves. I think it was really good to see. Obviously, Kevon Looney didn't play, but it was good to see Willie say, okay, well, look, Şengün is out there. That's your assignment. And you have to deal with it. And I think he stood toe-to-toe with Şengün very well. Obviously, Şengün's a much better player, different part of his career. But this was a good waking up and a good, hey, the Melbourne games were great. Those teams were nice. This is the NBA. You think it's tough tonight? You got Orlando with Paolo and Franz and Wendell Carter and a whole bunch of other tall people coming up soon. And so it's good to see Eves kind of find his aggressiveness against a top tier center. And I think both he and Herb need to continue to be aggressive because you're gonna need that other side of the ball from them. But it's just going to be very difficult for the Pelicans to do anything offensively if those guys aren't locked in and making themselves offensive threats on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think with Eves, what I was looking for, obviously he added some weight this offseason just to be able to bang with, the centers down low and things like that. And with this game in particular, I didn't feel as if the weight was the issue or whatnot. Mm-hmm. I thought he was inconsistent in doing his work early. Some of the box out. Obviously, Steven Adams is one of the best offensive rebounders in the NBA. And when you pair him next to Alperen Sengun, like that's going to be difficult. Even if Eves does box his man out, there's another 7-footer, and the Pelicans are probably on the perimeter somewhere. And so, I didn't feel like it was all his fault in terms of why it felt like the Pelicans were getting bullied on the offensive boards. They only lost the rebounding battle by a couple, but it just felt like it. From that standpoint. But I didn't necessarily look at Eves and say this was his issue this game. The biggest thing, to your point, will be maintaining that confidence and knowing that he has to maintain that consistency for the entire game, because if he don't get the rebound, you're begging that your guards and your wings are there. So I want to go from one, two players that struggle with consistency that's there and confidence there to another. Now, we talked about Jordan Hawkins, and to start the game, Garrett, it looked like he had the little cold ice symbol that's on 2K next to him, because every time he touched the ball, it was a turnover. He had 2 threes blocked. Like
one by Reed Shepherd.
Yeah, it just felt as if he was pressing to some degree. And again, for a player who is seeing Saddiq Bey come in and look like, yeah, he's probably going to be your 6th man. I mean, if DeJounte goes back, he's your 7th man, but he looks like he's going to be in front of you, right? Like that, to have that there, you see Michael Peavy get in late, and you see the things that he brings in terms of the size and physicality of just being able to be a 3-and-D type player. And you say, man, someone's in front of me and someone's behind me. What am I going to do? But what I thought was important from Jordan Hawkins was that he didn't let the game just totally pass him by. He still was able to maintain his confidence. He kept shooting, which I thought was important, because you know how shooters get sometimes. When you miss a couple, you get a couple blocks. You're gun shy. After that, he kept shooting. He kept protect the rim. He tried to go for a crazy putback on top of 8 people that didn't work and things like that. But he kept his aggressiveness, and I think that's going to be important for him. There's going to be up and down games for him. You saw him kind of give way a little bit to Houston's physicality on the defensive end, but you want to see him maintain that level of confidence that made him the shooter that you drafted in the first place. And so I thought that the game started off awful for him, but he was able to kind of slow things down. What were your thoughts on Jordan Hawkins' game?
Yeah, man, this one was rough for me for Hawk. And I agree, like, kudos to him for staying in it and not, letting the game slip totally away. But there was just a lot of things that, like, I was watching, and if like I closed my eyes and I didn't see who threw the pass or who got the shot block, I was like, oh, that's a rookie. Or that's that was Jeremiah Fears did that. Or that was one of these rookie two-way players. And, like, we've just gotten to a point with Jordan Hawkins where it seems like every single, not every single game, but stretches of games where we're like, okay, what's the issue with Jordan Hawkins now? Is it the back? Is it his confidence? Is it this? Is it that? And that was fine when Jordan Hawkins was the only, like, shooter, movement shooter, anything like that on the on the Pelicans team. And again, I still do think his skill set is unique, the movement, the athleticism, and things like that. But Saddiq Bey is really, and Micah Peavy, and really Jordan Poole, because he has a lot of movement shooting in him. It's different. It's weirdly different. They're making it very difficult to keep saying, okay, Jordan Hawkins, what else can we get out of you? And I think it culminates with the last offensive play for the Houston Rockets, where Jose Alvarado is guarding Aaron Holiday, and he's locked in with the clock going down, and Aaron Holiday literally calls for Jordan Hawkins, man, to come set a screen. And I was listening to the broadcast. I heard Ty Graffinini said Aaron Holiday kind of stepped through and laid it up and wrapped. It was so easy. There was no resistance. And Jordan Hawkins he may be small, but he ain't as small as Aaron Holiday. I'm talking about height wise and things like that. He's not as like Aaron Holiday's a bigger guard, but, like, you gotta, like, put some kind of defensive, and it just was so easy. And that in is of itself, where you're not giving me, like, a Jordan Poole Jordan Poole got beat a couple of times in the first couple, plays of the game, and he had his defensive things, but he was out there getting shots. He was hitting some shots. He was getting to the line. He was drawing fouls. He was doing a lot of different things. Right now, Jordan Hawkins got fouled shooting the three. We know that's what he does, but it's just not enough for the target that he has on his back. And he's really in an important year. And I don't think people understand just how important it is for Jordan Hawkins, because he is looking at two replacements at like in Saddiq Bey and Micah Peavy that, bro, like they are better defenders. They are bigger players, and they may not be able to, it might not be as pretty as your jumper, like, or, aesthetically pleasing as your jumper, but like those percentages don't lie. And so I it's getting to a point where like Jordan Hawkins, I don't know how much, and the last thing to know is that this isn't the regime that drafted you. Like they have no like loyalty to you. They inherited you. So like, whereas David Griffin might have been like, bro, we have to stick with this guy so that I can prove that I didn't make a bad choice. Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars don't have that. They don't have that same kind of litmus test that they need to have. And so I am mildly concerned about Jordan Hawkins moving forward. And again, it's the first preseason game or third preseason game, first against the NBA competition. So I'm not going to make any sweeping conclusions, but it has just gotten to a point where it feels like it's always, well, Hawk's this. Well, Hawk has to do this. Well, Hawk has to have this. Whereas I don't feel that way about Saddiq Bey. He runs on the floor. He's ready to go. Micah Peavy got a few minutes in and was ready to go. It was out there running and hustling and playing defense. And I just feel like it's creeping up on Jordan Hawkins really, really quickly that, Saddiq Bey, Micah Peavy, I can see Willie Green.
Shoot, DeJounte Murray. Like there's only so many guards you can be able to put on the floor.
I'm worried. I'm mildly concerned about it. And if he needs to turn this around quickly, because the NBA has a very, very, very short attention span when it comes to players.
Right. I think, for him, and again, you don't want to overreact to a preseason game one way or the other from that standpoint. But at the same time, to your point, at some point, the stats and the data became to accumulate. And at some point, you have to buck the trend either one way or the other, right? From that standpoint. Now, a young player who, let's go from Jordan Hawkins to a young player who on his birthday today decided he wanted to show out in Jeremiah Fears. He found his jumper. This is the best Jeremiah Fears has looked since he's put on in New Orleans anything as far as his jump shot goes. And it started right off the bat, Garrett. First of all, he went in before Jose, which I thought was interesting because I think as you get into the regular season and as rotations start to constrict a little bit, and as you get Derik Queen back and you have another big body that you don't have to play just three wings all the time, the amount of minutes for the guards are going to go down, from that standpoint. So it's going to come down to who's going to play and who's not. And for Jeremiah Fears' perspective, again, like with him, I'm not just looking for, what can he do from a jump shots perspective? Obviously, that's the part of his game that's going to have to continue to grow. But I'm looking for the things that he's already good at. And the reason why you drafted him at 7 and the reason why you want him to get minutes early so he can continue to fail and to grow from there. And Garrett, like, it's very obvious. Like when he's on the court, first of all, he's constantly pushing the pace, just like we just talked about, where it can be inconsistent. I don't think Jeremiah Fears knows how to go slow. So right now, he runs up the court and then just snake dribbles his way around and waits for everybody to come. And I think that's a good thing. You saw him find Zion early in the shot clock, just standing underneath the basket. I think that's a good thing because outside of DeJounte Murray, he is the only other point guard I would say on the roster from that standpoint. So like, the more that he's able to figure out what are his spots, but also how does he get other folks involved? You saw him get into a rhythm and you saw him getting confident both with his own shot, but then saying, okay, here's my gravity. How do I use that to get other people involved and things like that? You're starting to see it click for him. Again, he's 19. I can't call him 18-year-old. He's 19 years old, teenager, right? Playing a grown men, but like, And different from Jordan Hawkins, like when I see Jeremiah Fields on the floor, I don't feel his lack of size because like his arms are so long. It's like he just put the sliders all the way up on longs that like his first play on the defensive end, they try to go at him. He gets a steal. The next play, like you're seeing the traits that in order for a small guard to be successful, they have to have insert. You have to be elite at something if you're not going to be 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", things like that. And you're starting to see those things pop. What did you see from the rookie? What did you like? What gives you, I guess, hope that, hey, he might be able to carve out a good role for himself early on in the season?
Well, the first thing that gives me hope is the fact that Willie Green played him over Jose, which is, I think, if you've been following the Willie Green led Pelicans, you know just how either Willie Green thinks he's special or Joe Dumars made a call and they had, they went to 504 golf and they had a conversation about playing Jeremiah Fields. I think that's the first thing.
Two things can be true.
Yeah. And so I think that's the first thing that gives me a little bit of confidence in him. I think the other thing is that he has 6 rebounds and 4 steals. I think that, listen, I know he can play and score. Like I've seen him do that, but 4 steals and 6 rebounds lets me know that he has a feel for the game. Like that, you don't just fall into 6 rebounds as a 6 foot whatever guard. Like you don't fall into that. That is having know-how, understanding the game, and Steph Curry's a good rebounder, and that's because he knows the game and has basketball IQ. Like those are the type of things that get you on the floor for, especially for a guy like Willie Green. And if 4 steals lets me know again, if they're going to attack you. It's going to happen. You're not going to grow 5 inches and 40 pounds overnight. It's not going to happen. Can you be a defensive playmaker? Can you get those steals? Give you a little leeway for getting beat a couple of times because you're making defensive plays. But 14 points in the fourth quarter, man. I mean, come on. That is a guy that knows some stuff. And I'm gonna compare him. I tweeted something on my other account that kind of is apropos to Jeremiah Fields. And it's funny that it's both happening in the city of New Orleans. He has a lot of Spencer Rattler in him.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like he's a gamer. I tweeted that Spencer Rattler was the football version of he a hooper.
Right.
Jeremiah Fields is the basketball version of that. Like he is the basketball version of he a hooper. Just he's not a perfect player, just like Spencer. He's not a perfect player. He has things that go wrong. But like there's something to his gamesmanship when the game levels up and the intensity levels up. Fourth quarter, the game got a little closer, and he locked into some. And we saw, bro, he was an 18-year-old guard running the SEC. And the SEC is not a slouch. There's Kentucky in there. There's Auburn. There's a lot of good teams.
Arkansas.
Shout out to the Razorbacks. There's a lot of good teams in the SEC. A lot of big players in the SEC, and he was running the SEC. And so he's a gamer and he's a hooper, and he has the elite skill set that is one of the transformative skill sets. If you are the fastest player on the court and can get to your spot whenever you want to, that is a skill set that defenses really can't adjust for because you're just too fast. And so once the game slows down for him, once he starts to, because again, he's ridiculously young and still ridiculously raw. Once the game starts slowing down for him, I think this fourth quarter is what you're going to see as his trajectory goes up because he has that feel for the game. He has that gamesmanship. He has that competitiveness. It's just about harnessing it and then growing and maturing in the NBA game because it's a lot different than the college game. And to some of it to his benefit, meaning that the floor is a lot more space and so he can make a lot of plays. But I think challenges that he'll see, much bigger players, top world-class athletes, guys. You saw him get his shot blocked by Jabari Smith, and I know he was like, "Oh, okay."
Amin Thompson chased him down on a fast break.
Yeah. I know he was like, "Oh, wait, That guy was like 1 foot in the paint, and now he's like over here blocking shots. He could probably get that shot off at Oklahoma. It's a lot different in the NBA. He's going to learn that. He's going to learn, those things. And I said when they first drafted him, I don't want him to slow down because that's his best asset. Again, I wanted him to watch a lot of Tyrese Halliburton because Tyrese Halliburton he doesn't slow down. He just plays with a lot with composure and is smart with the ball. And so I want him to do that, continue playing with that pace, continue playing with that speed, because it's something that is going to be an asset to him his entire career. And you saw a lot of it in that fourth quarter where he just kind of took over. And at the end of the game, number one, Willie and the team said, we're going to you, and we're going to, and he almost hit the shot. But I think what was more impressive, or what you saw a lot of, after the game, Tyree Eason walked up to him and he was like,
KD, yeah.
Damn, bro. KD walked up and was like, damn, bro. Like you put on a show. Game recognized game. And I think that he's gonna garner a lot of respect and a lot of fans throughout this. Obviously, Zero Fears is the nickname and things going on. But he has a lot of game with him. And I think that fourth quarter was one that he can build upon. And it's kind of, obviously it was against backups and things like that, but this is the game that shows that you belong in the league. And so just build on from there and keep it going. But I really enjoyed watching that fourth quarter from Jeremiah Fears.
Yeah, I think not just the fourth quarter, but just his game in general today. I think where the Pelicans fall for most analysts, for most people who watch the NBA is this. I think everyone can objectively agree that the Pelicans are a dangerous team, but nobody trusts the Pelicans, right? Everyone says, well, if, but that's a lot of if, and history tells us otherwise. But also, like, a game like today, this is the guy who's like 8th, 9th off your bench when you're healthy, right? And if a guy like this can have a game, and I don't think that this is like an admiration. He didn't do anything tonight. Yes, he hit some jump shots finally, but he didn't do anything tonight where it was like, oh, that's not replicable. Like, he's not going to hit 8 threes again. Like, it wasn't that. It was just his normal pace of game. And so if you have a guy like that who's coming off the bench behind Jordan Poole, behind DeJounte Murray at some point and things like that, that's just another guy. Again, you haven't even seen Derik Queen. And, like, that's the piece of the Pelicans that, again, no one trusts, but no one wants to say, well, they're totally out because what if? Right? Because you have the number 7 pick in the draft who has an elite skill set and things like that. And so, like, I'm very interested to see that continue to grow. The other part about that is, and to your point, when you are coming off the bench in the middle of the season versus the Nuggets, and Jeremiah Fears has 7 points in a row in the third quarter or fourth quarter, whatever it is, I'm very interested to see what Willie Green and the staff does. In those scenarios, do you let a player like that who, once they see a couple go in, play it out and have a couple rookie mistakes, but continue to see if he can keep that fire going? Or do you pull it back because he's a rookie and he makes a mistake? Like, I'm so intrigued in that part of this season and this team, because you got some young guys, but you got some old guys, and you're trying to win all at the same time. I'm just very interested to see that, how to play out. Now, again, it's one preseason game. You got one left before the show starts next week. There's not a whole lot you can take away with it because the main players didn't even play the game. One thing that I took away with it for sure, that I think is just really going to be the question, is that the defense is still a work in progress. And everyone can look at this roster and say that's going to be the thing that holds it back and, revert back to last year. Again, I don't like to use any stat from last year because last year it's almost impossible when Ease is your most played games and Jeremiah Robinson Earl is number 2. Like, it's almost impossible to take anything from that. But I'm also revert to the years before that when the Pelicans were top 6 in defense and the people that you lost was, Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance. But then it was CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas, who are not necessarily defensive stalwarts. So, like, when I look at a game like tonight where the Pelicans were in it, like, you're battling back and forth with the Rockets, third quarter get punched in the face yet again from that standpoint. But you're in it versus one of the premier teams in the West. The activity was phenomenal. You saw, again, we talk about the steals from Fears and Poole and Zion and Trey. The rebounding was not, from that end. but more so the lapse in defensive closeouts and things like that. There was some of that there. So there was a lot to be encouraged by to say that's how they need to play, that up in your face tempo. You saw at times from Herb. You saw at times with Trey getting in Jabari Smith, forcing the offensive foul, things like that. But can you maintain that consistency through the course of the game and through the course of 82? That's going to be the telltale of this too. And again, I don't expect them to have it figured it out now, but it's something they're going to have to figure out sooner rather than later. What you got?
Yeah, I was very interested to see how they went from like zone to man, and like the zone. Like I get the reason to do it, but like you can't leave Jabari Smith open in the corner for wide open threes. That's defensive lapses. Like, yeah, you're supposed to guard the area, but like you're not supposed to turn your back to a good 3-point shooter who had like three, who hit 2 or 3 before you even
got 20 already. Yeah,
right. Like you're not supposed to do that. And then if you're also going to play zone and you're undersized, like they're not playing zone to like hide the fact that they don't have a big man or a rim protection. They're playing zone to hide like the guards, to hide like Jordan Peele and stuff. I mean, or Jordan Poole and stuff. And so, like, if you're gonna do that, you have to be committed to rebounding, because if you're just standing in one zone and the shot go up, then it makes no sense. It doesn't matter that you got the stop, because they're just gonna get to the rebound and tip it in. And what was the zone for anyway? And so if you're gonna play like that, which is fine, like I think the best defenses can play any which way, right? Like you can get into a zone if you need to for a couple of possessions, switch back into man, and have the same intensity on both in both of those sets. You have to be able to be on a string and be aware of all the time. There was a lapse from Zion in the corner. There was a lapse from Jordan Poole at the top of the key. Like you can't have lapses in zones, because when the shot goes up, everybody is going to the rim. And if you're just standing there watching and whatever, like that, you don't get the board. And so they're going to have to iron that out. I'm sure Willie Green was not happy with those things. The man defense, you can't just let people dribble around you because you have Yves Missi behind you, because like the NBA there's a lot of like good guys in the NBA. You saw Amen get around Yves a bunch of times and just lay the ball up. But just getting around the perimeter defender, it was just too easy. And so they have to get that down. I think, listen, it was their first like preseason game with Herb. I saw a lot of times Herb kind of pushing people and pointing people to go places. I think that having a quarterback of the defense back is going to be, do wonders for the team. And I think he needs to get into his shape and his, game conditioning as well. So I think those things will get ironed out. I think they have all the tools to be a decent defense. It's just about locking in and not having those lapses. And I think that's something that they have to get out of their systems early, because it's they have all the talent, but losing guys for open corner threes over and over again, that can beat you. And that's not even their talent. That's just wide open NBA players shooting wide open threes. They're going to make those, and then you have some of these better shooters doing it. So I agree. They have to get that ironed out quickly.
Right. And you look at that, and again, I think Houston was a great team to play in the preseason, just to kind of see where you're at. And again, I think the Pels played well for the majority of the game. The third quarter was but I think the majority of the game they played well, but there's stuff you take away. Again, there's a reason why you have preseason games, so you can go look at the film and say, this what we can't have, right? And learn from that angle. And again, I think Orlando's also another team that's historically give the Pelicans problem. I don't expect the Pelicans to play their starters or main rotation guys a lot in the last preseason game, but you still want them to maintain a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of momentum going into next week, where again, you look at Memphis, who's ailing, and you look at San Antonio, who may not have the Aaron fight. You see some winnable games to get off to a strong start, which you desperately need. So with that being said, that's all we got for you after this preseason game. What you got left for the people, Garrick, is the Pelicans got one more before it's showtime.
Yeah, as always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. Appreciate everybody, Trey, Paul, all you guys for coming in late night. I know, people got work in the morning, but Pelicans are playing, so to hell with them jobs. They'll be all right. But yeah, I appreciate all y'all coming through. Yeah, man, one more to get to the real season. Again, I don't think like you said, I don't think a lot of guys are going to play extended minutes in the last game, but I think you'll see guys like Jeremiah Fears. It's another opportunity for him to step in and be great. So with that being said, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO_basketball no E. That's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your social medias. Most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans Basketball, and we'll see you guys in the next one.